Wordsworth, Romney, obsolescence.
You walk into this room at your own risk, because it leads to the future. Not a future that will be, but one that might be. This is not a new world. It is simply an extension of what began in the old one. It has patterned itself after every dictator who has ever planted the ripping imprint of a boot on the pages of history since the beginning of time. It has refinements, technological advances, and a more sophisticated approach to the destruction of human freedom. But like every one of the super-states that preceded it, it has one iron rule. Logic is an enemy and truth is a menace. This is Mr. Romney Wordsworth. In his last 48 hours on Earth, he's a citizen of the state, but will soon have to be eliminated. Because he is built out of flesh, and because he has a mind.
You've been under investigation, Mr. Wordsworth, for the mandatory period of 1 year and 11 months. You're found to be obsolete. The purpose of this hearing is to make a finding in the matter and make a sentence accordingly. Do you understand that, Mr. Wordsworth? Your occupation, Mr. Wordsworth?
A librarian, sir.
A librarian. Having to do with books.
Yes, sir. Books.
Since there are no more books, Mr. Wordsworth, there are no more libraries. The field investigators in your sector have classified you as obsolete. Your rights are as follows, Mr. Wordsworth. You are to be liquidated within a period of 48 hours. You are obsolete, Mr. Wordsworth.
A lie. No man is obsolete.
You have no function, Mr. Wordsworth. You're an anachronism, like a ghost from another time.
I am nothing more than a reminder to you that you cannot destroy truth by burning pages.
You're a bug, Mr. Wordsworth, a crawling insect, an ugly, misformed little creature who has no purpose here, no meaning.
I am a human being.
Delusions, Mr. Wordsworth. Delusions that you inject into your veins with printer's ink. The narcotics that you call literature, poetry, essays, all of it an opiate. You have nothing but spindly limbs and a dream. And the state has no use for your kind.
I don't care. I tell you, I don't care. I'm a human being. I exist. And if I speak one thought aloud, that thought lives, even after I'm shoveled into my grave.
The Chancellor, the late Chancellor, was only partly correct. He was obsolete. But so is the state, the entity he worshipped. Any state, any entity, any ideology that fails to recognize the worth, the dignity, the rights of man, that state is obsolete.
Hello to you all. You're watching RHTVLive, and we are streaming live from Maastricht, which is in the south of the Netherlands. Now we're going to show you guys that on the map. So here you guys go. Here we have Maastricht, which is in the south of the Netherlands, as I've said before. And we're going to zoom out. So there you go. There we have the Netherlands, right? So it's been a while since I've been on YouTube, but I'm back on YouTube. So let's talk politics, right? What's happening in the world? Well, we got a lot of videos that we can show you guys. And the first video is of the Bilderberg Group. Yep, we're going to talk about the Bilderberg Group again. So here you guys go. Live at secretive meeting, right?
and the oil company and the NATO and the green energy all at the same time, speaking with themselves, networking with themselves, like a team building of the leaders of the world. I mean, what is the use to vote? What is the use, even if you don't vote, the parliament of your country probably would not be empty with the same percentage of abstentionist votes. Here in Portugal, we have like 40% of people that don't vote, with an abstention of 40%. But the Portuguese parliament is not with 40% of the seats free. So in terms of a dictatorship and democracy, when you compare with it, you come to the conclusion that the dictator, he fears democracy. That's why he doesn't want to have it. And the people that speak big words about democracy, I think they control the democracy with their journalists. And you are the best journalists in the world, because if you are following the highest level peoples in the world, and you are the only ones, you are the only journalists in the world. That's what I see. I don't see CNN here showing the NATO General Secretary and having a meeting with the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine here in Lisbon.
Dan, did you see any mainstream press on the outside?
I can tell you exactly who was here. Bloomberg was here. The Atlantic was here. The Financial Times was here. And The Economist was here. Unfortunately, they all happened to be on the inside of the meeting. So at one point, there was, those are some of the major ones. There were more journalists on the inside of the building than there were on the outside.
Now, wait a minute. There were more journalists inside the building than on the outside, right? So we're going to take a look at a quote of David Rockefeller. Yep, we're going to show the quote again. Here you guys go. He wrote a book called Memoirs, right? And let's see, one of these quotes. We are grateful to the Washington Post, the New York Times, Time Magazine, and other great publications whose directors have attended our meetings and respected their promises of discretion for almost 40 years. It would have been impossible for us to develop our plan for the world if we had been subjected to the lights of publicity during those years. Yep. But the world is more sophisticated and prepared to march towards a world government. The supranational sovereignty of an intellectual elite and world bankers is surely preferable to the national autodetermination practiced in past centuries. So there you guys go, right? He's the guy behind the curtain, right? Don't look at the guy behind the curtain. Remember that? Wizard of Oz, right? So this is the guy behind the curtain. And well, David Rockefeller is dead, but still his family is behind the curtain. This is the shadow elite, the people you don't vote for, but still have power. And they do this during the Bilderberg meetings, right? So this is happening. This is not a conspiracy theory, This is really happening. And you better wake up, man. You better wake up, because we're going to show you guys what the Bilderberg people are talking about. Let's see if we can find that somewhere in the list. We'll get back to that, right? Can't find it right now. There's also a G7 summit in Japan, and that does get some media attention. And we're going to take a look at this here.
With anticipation high, the G7 summit in Hiroshima will focus on China's economic coercion and Russia's invasion of Ukraine. China has so far not taken this well. Our Kim Do-yeon files this report from Hiroshima.
The G7 summit in Hiroshima kicked off with some of the world's most powerful leaders all here in this city of 1.2 million people. Invited on top of the group of 7 or 8 world leaders, those of South Korea, Australia, and India, among others. For the next 3 days, they will hold talks on expanding cooperation on economy and security. This year's G7 is expected to focus on China's economic coercion and Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Now, the public waits to see how strong of a message these leaders agreed to send after talks have finished, after narrowing their differences in approach to these ongoing issues. China has shown strong condemnation of the global meeting, calling it a provocation against the country.
As the host country of the G7 summit, Japan is obsessed with provoking and making bloc confrontation and impairing regional interests. China firmly opposes it.
As for the group's stance on the Russian invasion of Ukraine, it has been reported by a number of media outlets that Ukrainian President Zelensky will pay a visit in person to these meetings. And while the leaders are working on the final agreement, Reuters reports that more sanctions against Russia have been drafted, and by the end of this summit, the results will be revealed. Also, one important aspect of this summit is nuclear disarmament. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida chose his hometown especially for this, as the city endured a devastating atomic bomb attack back in 1945, killing more than 120,000 people. With that in mind, one of the first things that the leaders did was to visit the Hiroshima Peace Memorial to pay their respects. Of the 7,
we shall never forget the Japanese people that have died during the atomic bombs that have fallen on the country, right? Because Hiroshima is not the only city that was bombed. We also have Nagasaki, right? We're not going to forget this. You know, this happened decades ago, and all these people standing, these so-called political leaders, right? Here we have Ursula von der Leyen, which is the EU commissioner. This is the prime minister of the new prime minister of the UK. What's his name? And this is the prime minister of Germany. You know, all these people, they do not represent the will of the population, you know. So this is just a mask that you see. They don't mean this, you know. They're just standing there because it's an obligation to do so. These are monsters. They're spending a lot of money that goes to Ukraine for war, right? Now, let's see what Russia does with the ammunition storage in Ukraine. Let's see if we can find that in the list. Let's see. There we go. Russia bombs UK uranium shells in Ukraine. Moscow claims radioactive cloud moving towards Europe. So we're going to take a look at this here. Bate as contas lá. So Poland says there's no radiation and stuff like that. Yeah, trust your government, right? You know, of course this has natural effects. You know, if you look at Fallujah, for example, it's in Iraq. I'll show you guys on the map. If you look at Fallujah, there was depleted uranium used over there, and children are being born with defects and stuff like that. You know, it's very, very sad to see. Now, we're going to see some, if this is true, you know, if there is some nuclear cloud over Europe, we're going to see a lot of defects, you know, but, oh well, yep, just look the other way. Nothing's wrong here. So, I promised you guys the Bilderberg group, and normally we have that on the list, but somehow I can't find it. So we're going to use Google Bilderberg meetings. There we go. And let's see what they're talking about. In Lisbon, Portugal, right? They're talking about AI, artificial intelligence, banking system. Yeah, our banking system is falling, it's collapsing. China, energy transition, right? Germany had the last 3 nuclear reactors shut down because they're on this whole green path, you know, solar panels and all that. Europe, yeah, Europe is facing a lot of stuff, you know, fiscal challenges. Yeah, there are a lot of challenges because the population is waking up, you know, they're waking up to these evil plans that these Bilderberg people have, you know, and they're not going to talk about this, of course not. They're not going to talk about this. It's up to us to show this. You know, it's up to us to, I'm getting all these messages, sorry for that. It's up to us to, you know, show this. And we're doing our best, you know, we're really doing our best. So, fiscal challenges, India. They're talking about India, that's interesting. Industrial policy and trade. Yeah, that's also interesting. NATO, yeah. Disband NATO, that's the best thing you can do. You know, just disband it. That is not a peacekeeping organization. You know, they attacked Serbia during the Yugoslavia war, they attacked Libya, they attacked all these countries, and they're not really protective. So disband NATO, and that would be my suggestion. But who am I? I'm not at the table, right? Russia. Well, every year they talk about Russia. These people are so obsessed with a country that does not want to play their game. And, they are really obsessed with Russia. Every year they talk about it. Transnational threats, such as, we don't know, because we're not at the table, right? So, Ukraine, of course, they talk about Ukraine. The Interior Minister of Ukraine is at the Bilderberg meetings, and U.S. leadership. You see, the elections are coming up, and I think they're going to kick out Biden, right? Because Biden is a puppet, and he is very, very corrupt. We know that his family is, it has a lot of money and is dealing with countries and stuff like that. It's really insanity. It's like when you do this as a civilian in your own country, you go behind bars. And now you have this demented guy, right, saying he's basically a Kansas farm boy. And, it's not true. It's not true. He's lying about everything. They're lying to you. They're concealing this, the Bilderberg meetings, And I'm just showing you what's really happening. So, as I've said before, they are very obsessed with Russia. Now, let's see what they talked about in June 2022 in DC. Let's see. Russia on the agenda again. Russia, there you go. They are really obsessed about Russia. This is the only country they haven't successfully attacked. The bankers haven't successfully attacked it. And they're trying their best to attack. They really are trying, but they are failing. They're dragging the whole Western society into a war that we never chose for. We want peace. That's what we want, not war, right? Talk about the differences, talk about whatever, but don't wage war. That's very, very bad. Now, Putin, you go stand in the corner, and Vladimir Zelensky, you go stand in that corner, right? It's like, oh my God, man. Why don't people talk this out? And, the alliances are shifting because there's this Western alliance, right? And now many countries are having second thoughts on the Western alliance, right? Because of this whole Russia sanctions and Russia war, even though Russia still says it's a military intervention, not a war. So, yeah, there's a lot to talk about, people, but, let this soak in. Let this soak in, right? The media is there. They're there at the Bilderberg meetings, and they're not giving you the whole picture. You know? That's very, very sad to see. And there are journalists like Seymour Hersh that have exposed what was happening in the Baltic Sea, the Nord Stream pipeline that was blown up, and you know, very, very brave journalist, because he is competing against the deep state, right? We also know of the Durham report. John Durham was investigating the whole Democrat issue surrounding Trump, right? The Russia collusion and all that. And he found out that the FBI lied about it, right? Hillary Clinton paid off the FBI to make up a story about Trump. Now, Trump is not my friend. He's also done weird stuff that I disagree with. But still, 4 years of peace, world peace. And now we have Biden and a war in Ukraine, pressure in Taiwan, right? China wants to take over Taiwan. And, you know, there's a lot going on in the world. And I'm just trying to explain it, you know? So let's show you guys the map. There you go. So over here we have the Netherlands. And if we go to the left, or to the right, I mean, we have Ukraine. Right? Over here we have Ukraine. And over here in the east, there's fighting going on. And very, very sad to see. Very, very sad to see. You know, this fighting needs to stop. We need world peace. That's what we need. Not fighting. You know, Putin, go shake hands with Zelensky, right? Go sit at the table. And Xi Jinping, you know, if you want the world at your feet, you know, you can set up the table, right? That's what you've done in Iran in relation to Saudi Arabia, right? Now we know that Iran and Saudi Arabia are in a proxy war in other countries such as Iraq and Syria and Yemen. So, and now China has set up the table and said, Iran, you sit over there, Saudi Arabia, you sit over there, and we're going to talk. You know, this has to end. And I'm not really a fan of the CCP, you know, because it's not democratic in any kind of shape or form. But they are setting the stage on the world, you know. And is that a good thing? Is that a good thing that China is doing this? Right? So it's very questionable. And we still do not know where the unspecified virus came from. And are we allowed to talk about that? Or will you still get banned? Right? Who knows? I don't know the rules. And I don't abide by the rules. So we know that that they're talking about India in the Bilderberg meetings, and why are they talking about India, right? So if we look at the world stage, Iran has joined Russia in Ukraine, providing Russia with drones and stuff. So that's going on, right? China is neutral, as is India. So why are they talking about India? That's why they're neutral. You know, they want India to choose a side. They want India to say, hey, Russia, we're going to sanction you. But what these nitwits don't know is that India is dependent on Russia, right? So, but they are talking about it. And why aren't they talking about Myanmar, right? Well, you know, there's a coup going on in Myanmar, and very, very sad thing to see. This is what I'd ask the Prime Minister, you know, why aren't you talking about Myanmar? You're talking about Ukraine, which is, I admit, closer to the Netherlands than Myanmar, but you're not talking about Myanmar, where people are being slaughtered by the coup government, right? So, we're going to show you guys something here. And this is amazing, really is amazing. I don't know if you guys have seen this here, but this here is a meeting within the executives of the Washington Post and all these other publications talking about how great they are and stuff like that. And then you have an intruder saying, hey, is this the lecture hall with Seymour Hersh? So we're going to take a look at this here.
Oh, is this the lecture hall with Seymour Hersh? I'm looking for the one with Seymour Hersh because it's a policy and press hall event. So shouldn't we be talking about the Nord Stream since that's the biggest story of the century? And you guys, you know, I mean, you have the executive editor of the New York Times there who came out with a phony story to try and block Seymour Hersh. It's just kind of funny how that happened, you know? I mean, did you even acknowledge Seymour Hersh? All of you are executive editors of papers that broke Pentagon, My Lai, Watergate. Is this the same papers or not? I mean, is there anything you've gotten right in the last 20 years, or am I mistaken about that? I mean, it's just kind of funny because Iraq, wrong. Syria, wrong. Russiagate, really wrong. Okay, I mean, the list goes on and on. So the last thing you could do to try and actually fix your reputation is acknowledge that through leaks, we had to find out that Zelensky was going to bomb Moscow on the anniversary. I mean, if you're so impartial, shouldn't you at least say, right, that Zelensky was going to bring us on the verge of World War III? That seems pretty fair. While Julian Assange rots in prison, all of you got, you know, fat checks because he's in jail for doing your job. And you know what? Tucker Carlson ain't no Seymour Hersh, but he did something you guys are scared to do. Speak the truth and actually be critical of the war, which is why he was actually fired from Fox, because you are all cowards. Every single one of you. None of you have actually had any relevancy. And you know what? The mainstream press is now dying. Nobody's ever going to listen to you again. You have no credibility with the public. The only people who care about what you have to say are elite assholes who have nothing productive to say anymore. And it's dying off. So will you at least say something, either about Nord Stream or Ukraine or the fact that Zelensky brought us to the verge of World War III and the only reason we knew about that was through leaks? Go ahead. It's a free speech event, right? You guys are the press. Let's say something here. Mr. Khan, come on. You know, you're the executive editor of the New York Times, you know. I'm just trying to get into some good trouble here, man. Woo. Listen, Karen, get out of my face for a second. I got to talk to these gentlemen. Okay. Well, I just want to hear what they have to say. Go ahead, I'm done.
Wait your turn.
You're not gonna tell them to you. Come.
Wait your turn.
You could project if we can't.
I would just say I think it's important to hear everybody's point of view.
Yeah.
So thank you.
All right.
I do think that we need to give our moderator a chance to ask other questions.
We're on the verge of World War III.
Some of the people in the audience also do so. Let's go. Really, thank you.
Say something about this bombing. We blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. Listen, don't stand there while there are people rotting in prison. Nobody said anything about Uhuru, right? The socialists who are in jail for being critical of this war. God damn it.
That's it. Let's go. Let's go.
At least say something about the people in jail for being critical of this war. They don't deserve to be in prison right now.
There you go. That's what happens when you speak out, right, to these reptilians, these people who have no empathy on what's happening in the world. You know, they're just boosting their egos and stuff like that. You know, this is part of the machine, part of the you know, the whole mechanized system. And, you know, these are the projectors, and they're projecting their ego, basically. So what this guy said, you know, about the Nord Stream pipeline, I agree. You know, Julian Assange indeed rots in prison because he showed the truth. He showed what's happening in Iraq, you know, that journalists were killed by American choppers. They were flying around the area, and, you know, they had nothing to do. Then someone had a suitcase. Oh, that guy's got a machine gun. Yeah, he's a terrorist, right? You hear them talking during their observation of these people. You know, it's really, really insane. It's insane. Leave these people alone. You know, 4.5 million people have died during the post 9/11 wars. So it's very, very sad to see. Here's another example of the transition we are in. Here we have a statue with boobs and a penis. Are you allowed to say that? Anyway, and it's covered by the flag upside down because we have red, white, and blue. But, you know, the country is in distress. So there's the live stream this earlier today where I talk about the nuclear cloud. This is also interesting. The Olympic, very interesting stuff. This is also interesting. We have a Dutch, well, she says she used to, you know, do lawyer stuff. And well, we're just going to take a listen. She's talking about the needle. Are you allowed to say that? Needle? Anyway, we're going to take a listen to this here, what this woman has to say. She basically says it's your own fault, you know. It's your own fault. It's in Dutch, so we're going to listen to this.
Ik probeerde het net maar weer eventjes. En ik gooi het onderwerp erin bij mijn kantoorgenoot, mijn kamergenoot. Ik zeg, wat vind jij er nou van eigenlijk? Dat je echte prikschade hebt. En dat de overheid dan eigenlijk zegt, Hey, eigen schuld, dikke bult, zoek het uit, je wilt het zelf. En toen kregen we een hele bijzondere discussie. Nou, die discussie, ik discussieer niet meer mee. Over aansprakelijkheid. En jij als jurist begrijpt dat wel natuurlijk, hoe dat zit. Ja, natuurlijk. En daarom doe ik dat werk ook niet meer. Want binnen het juridisch kader heeft ethiek weinig plek, zeg maar. En de vraag is dus ook of je in dit soort situaties ooit tot een rechtvaardige uitkomst komt. Laten we even bij de kern blijven. Mensen zijn erin genaaid.
So basically she says, je bent erin genaaid. You fell for it. You fell for the lies. Let's see what else we got here on the timeline. This is also a very interesting song, the Pussycat song. Yeah, listen to that. Volk valt dood, laten we daarop stemmen. Yep. So we have the VVD in our cabinet, and they don't care about the people. They just care about their own power they wield. And, they're just like population, you mean nothing to me. It's like, what? You serve me. I don't serve you, right? So, and we had elections, provincial elections, and the VVD got a lot of votes, even though, most people in the Netherlands hate the VVD. So here we have a picture of me looking. This is also interesting. Taiwan is losing allies. What now? China has more money and it's buying off a lot of countries. Here we have Assad, right? Hey, what happened to that red line that Obama had drawn, right? Yeah, you're not going to pass this red line. Well, he didn't. But the proxies that we supported to overthrow Assad, they did. They used chemical weapons. There was even a delegation of Russians with Syrians that went to The Hague and testified, and The Hague said, we don't believe you. So here we go. The war on terror. What's been the impact? Let's take a look at this here. Now we need to share the screen, of course. Wait.
The US launched its so-called war on terror in the wake of 9/11. Invasions of Afghanistan and Iraq followed, with huge loss of life. Instability spread across many parts of the Middle East. So what's been the true impact? This is Inside Story. Hello there and welcome to the programme. I'm Nastasia Tay. Now, after US President George W. Bush launched what he labelled the war on terror in 2001, for people in countries like Afghanistan and Iraq, years of violence, death, destruction and political instability were to follow. Thousands were also detained and illegally taken to other countries, many tortured or subjected to brutal treatment for years without trial. Resistance grew and pushed the US and NATO out of Afghanistan 2 years ago. A new investigation from a top US university says more than 4.5 million people died, directly or indirectly, from the so-called war on terror. We'll be discussing its legacy with the report's author and our guests in just a few moments, but first this report from Alexandra Byers on how it all began.
It's been more than 2 decades since the 9/11 attacks.
We will never forget this, right? We will never forget this. The government lied about 9/11, even though, if you do believe the official story, if you look at the EPA, they said after this whole ordeal happened, they said the air quality was okay. You can go back to work, nothing wrong here. So on that basic fact, they lied, right? Now, what are they concealing? What are they concealing? You are a war criminal, Mr. Bush. We know. We got you on our agenda, right? Bush, Blair, and Balkenende, which is also an old prime minister we had. He also went to war.
People who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
That morning was followed by 2 devastating and costly wars. In November 2001, the US led an international coalition to invade Afghanistan, accusing the Taliban of harboring al-Qaeda fighters. It launched a huge bombing campaign and a ground operation. Tens of thousands of people were killed and millions more displaced. In 2003, the US attacked Iraq as part of its so-called war on terror, accusing its leader of stockpiling weapons of mass destruction.
Saddam Hussein and his regime will stop at nothing until something stops him.
The war plunged the country into sectarian violence and toppled Saddam Hussein. The weapons of mass destruction were never found.
Major combat operations in Iraq have ended. In the Battle of Iraq, the United States and our allies have prevailed.
You have not prevailed. You have created a power vacuum, right? In Iraq and also in Syria and Libya and Afghanistan, right? You created power vacuums. You call that a democracy? I mean, come on. Iraq is still dealing with the implications of 9/11, even though they were not involved, according to the 9/11 Commission, right?
George Bush's declaration of victory was made before the worst violence in Iraq was yet to come. The legacy of both invasions brought disastrous consequences for people in the region. But the so-called war on terror was never declared over, and wounds it inflicted have not healed. A new study by the Costs of War Project at Brown University estimates the post-9/11 wars and their ongoing impact have led to more than 4.5 million deaths. The scope of the report includes conflicts in places like Pakistan, Syria, Somalia, and Yemen. There are no official statistics for the numbers who died in the so-called war on terror, but the report says there are more indirect deaths than combat fatalities. Indirect deaths are blamed on things like the breakdown of economic, environmental, and psychological conditions. More than 20 years since the war in Afghanistan, the Taliban are back in power after a hasty US and NATO withdrawal almost 2 years ago. International donors have frozen Afghan bank reserves, and its health system is on the brink of collapse.
This is very, very sad to see. You know, we invested so much money in Afghanistan. 20 years we invested money in Afghanistan, and all that money is gone. It's like, what? You know, this is insanity. Really is insane. Afghanistan did not take part in 9/11. You know, the hijackers came from Saudi Arabia, and also there was one from Libya. So, you know, but Saudi Arabia did the most, you know. Did they attack Saudi Arabia? I don't think so. This is very, very sad to see. This is the twilight zone we are living in. You know, it's really is insane. So many people have died. And for what? For a lie? Really? Really? We know who the real enemy is, right? The real enemy is the military-industrial complex. Yep. Eisenhower warned us of that. And we're also going to show you guys that. But we're going to take a look at this here.
The report asks, in a place like Afghanistan, can any death today be considered unrelated to the US war? And what long-lasting impact will it continue to have on these countries? Alexandra Byers for Inside Story.
Well, let's now bring in our guests in New York. Stephanie Saville, the co-director of The Costs of War, a non-partisan research project based at the Watson Institute for International and Public Affairs at Brown University, and an author of the report. In Manchester, in the United Kingdom, Riba Ali Al-Hassani, a postdoctoral research fellow at Lancaster University, and also co-founder of the Iraqi Women Academics Network. And in Bethesda, Maryland, Michael O'Hanlon, a senior fellow and director of research and foreign policy at the Brookings Institution. A very warm welcome to all of you, and thanks for joining us today on Inside Story. Steph, this is your report, so I'll start with you. More than 4.5 million deaths. That's a really startling number. It's obviously something very difficult to quantify. How did you get to that number?
Yeah, this is something that the Costs of War project has been working on for years, actually. I've built on the work of colleagues of mine at the Costs of War project. For a long time, my colleague Nita Crawford has generated a regularly updated estimate of what direct deaths. So these are people who are killed through the weapons of war, through fire, the actual combat of war. That now is up to 906,000 to 937,000. That's the range that she estimates of direct deaths. So my report builds on that. It uses a ratio from the Geneva Declaration Secretariat that current day wars, there's an estimate of about 4 indirect deaths for every direct death. I dug in very deeply to research across many fields, including epidemiology and public health research. And basically, this is the best, latest information that's out there. Ideally, in an ideal scenario, there would be teams of researchers on the ground, local researchers doing excess mortality studies.
Now, tell me this, right? We had a lockdown, right? So all these proxies that we supported that still have some power in Syria, if you look at Idlib, right, north of Syria, they all abided by the lockdown. Now, isn't that weird? You know? Because I thought you were a terroristic group. Oh, well. This is what happens, you know. It's a very, very odd situation we're in. Let's see. De cyberaanval en globale gendrive genocide zijn nu nog makkelijk te voorkomen. Wie wil nou geen bezit hebben en sterven voor het klimaat? Moeilijke vraag, want we hebben te maken met een groepje mensen, zoals eerder aangegeven, de Bilderberg-groep, de schaduwelite, die mensen opofferen, zoals 9/11. Dat was een offering om dus Amerika in het Midden-Oosten te gaan verschuiven. Voor Bush waren ze niet bezig met het Midden-Oosten. Dus dat waren gewoon pionnen. Ja, we hebben te maken met een genocidale groepering die dus overheden gebruikt om dus mensen te kunnen onderdrukken. Ja. En daar hebben wij dus mee te maken. Ja. So I was explaining in Dutch, we are a genocidal group of people that make sacrifices such as 9/11, and that was basically to set a footprint in the Middle East for the U.S. because they weren't really focusing on the Middle East. They were more in Africa and other places. So what else is on the table? Even kijken, wat nog? Oh ja. Ecuador has no parliament anymore. It's been dissolved. Right? Over here we have the army standing in front of parliament, preventing the same happening in Peru, happening over there in Ecuador. So Ecuadorian President Guillermo Lasso invokes a mutual death constitutional clause to dissolve the National Assembly before an impeachment vote against him. So this happened a few days ago, the 17th. It's now the 21st. So a few days ago. And yeah, it's also very interesting to know that Parliament can be dissolved, right? Even though the president does this and not the population. But he was going to be impeached anyway. So, yeah, why not dissolve it? Right? So, we showed a lot on the table, and I think we're just about done. This is also very interesting. You guys don't see it, but we have another video of an African country named Djibouti. Now, what is so special about Djibouti, right? Here we have Djibouti. What's so special about that? We're going to show you guys. Why every country has military bases in Djibouti. There's a Japanese base, a Chinese base, an American base, French base, Italian base. Saudi Arabia wants to set up a base there, and many other countries are situated in Djibouti. Now, this is very interesting. Why? We're going to take a look at this.
Djibouti is a small country in the Horn of Africa that is most well known in the Western world for its funny-sounding name in English. Indeed, Djibouti is a country that few Westerners probably ever give a second thought about. It's only about the size of New Hampshire, and it only has a small population of about 957,000 people, the lowest population of any country on the entire mainland African continent. And yet, despite its small size and funny-sounding name, Djibouti is one of the most serious and influential geopolitical hotspots in the entire world because of this: the sheer number of foreign military bases that have been established on its territory. I mean, just look at this map of the area immediately around Djibouti's capital city, which is also called Djibouti. You've got an American military base here, which is the only permanent military base the United States has got anywhere on the African continent. You've got a collection of French military bases up here, a French-operated air base down here that the United States also uses to fly drones out of. You've got a Japanese military base over here, which is literally the only overseas base that the Japanese operate anywhere. You've got an Italian military base wedged in here by the Americans. You've got another French naval base up here. You've got German and Spanish soldiers who don't have bases of their own but get stationed up in these hotels. And then you've even got a Chinese People's Liberation Army naval base over here on the other side of town, opposite of the Americans and friends. The first overseas military base that the People's Republic of China ever built anywhere. And other countries are still actively trying to build their own bases here as well. In 2021, Djibouti agreed to allow Saudi Arabia to begin construction of a new military base in the country as well, which will likely appear somewhere near the American base when completed. And then for years now, Djibouti has also been courted by the Indian and Russian governments to construct some kind of base there for themselves as well. All of this means that as of 2023, little Djibouti in fact has by far the highest per capita concentration of foreign military bases on its soil out of any country in the world. And that kind of begs a question. Why and how did this little country in the Horn of Africa essentially become the 21st century's global military base for all of the world's great powers to set up their operations in? Well, a lot of Djibouti's significance and value comes from its ideal geographic position. You see, while Djibouti is indeed small, it also sits precisely on the western side of the narrow Bab el-Mandeb Strait, immediately opposite of Yemen. At its narrowest point, this strait is but 28 kilometers wide, and it is those 28 kilometers that all ships must pass through in order to get between the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. And in effect, because of the Suez Canal further to the north through Egypt, it is these 28 kilometers that all ships must pass through in order to get between the Mediterranean Sea and the Indian Ocean, at least quickly. This makes the Bab el-Mandeb Strait one of the most geopolitically crucial maritime choke points in the world, especially from the perspective of the global oil and gas industry and the state security of dozens of countries from all around the world. You see, while the Red Sea and the area around the Bab el-Mandeb Strait never yielded very many lucrative oil or natural gas discoveries, the nearby Persian Gulf region on the other side of the Arabian Peninsula literally contains the highest concentration of oil and gas found anywhere on the planet. Approximately half of all the world's known oil reserves and around a third of all the world's current oil production, in addition to around 40% of all the world's known natural gas reserves are found only here around the shores of Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and Oman. These reserves include the largest single oil field ever discovered in the world here at Ghavar in Saudi Arabia, and the largest single natural gas field ever discovered in the world here at the north and south part in the center of the Gulf shared between Qatar and Iran, which all on its own represents around a fifth of all the natural gas reserves ever found on the entire planet. The Persian Gulf is therefore arguably the single most important location on the entire planet in the 21st century, as it is effectively the greatest single source in the universe for the energy that humanity collectively consumes. The 8 countries around the Persian Gulf harvest their oil and natural gas resources, load them up on container ships, and then ship them through the similarly narrow Strait of Hormuz and into the Indian Ocean, where they then travel onwards to markets all around the world. For the ships carrying Persian Gulf oil and natural gas towards Asia, the journey then takes them across the Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal, then through the narrow Strait of Malacca, and then onwards to the energy-hungry economies of China, Taiwan, South Korea, and Japan. But for the ships carrying Persian Gulf oil and natural gas onwards from the Strait of Hormuz to Europe, the quickest and most efficient path is for them to then head west across the Gulf of Aden, through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait past Djibouti, up the Red Sea, and through the...
Now you know why Djibouti is a very important country, right? So, yeah, that's also very interesting to know. Real life lore, good channel to follow, you know, to view. I don't see myself as a follower. I view. I just watch and learn, you know. So, I was talking about Myanmar a while ago. And let's see what's happening in Myanmar, right? Here we go. Myanmar campaign of terror, bird's eye view. Now, we're going to show you guys this here. This is very, very sad to see. But this is reality, and we're not going to look the other way. We're just going to show you guys this.
Myanmar belie the campaign of terror burning through the Buddhist heartland. Village after village have been set alight at a rate far greater than in previous years. Getting information out of the Southeast Asian country is challenging. Since the military seized power in 2021, more than 130 journalists have been arrested. 4 have been killed, according to Reporters Without Borders. But a bird's-eye view of central Myanmar offers insight into what is happening on the ground. First, some context. In the November 2020 parliamentary elections, the National League for Democracy Party, the NLD, won by a landslide. But less than 3 months later, the army claimed there was a massive poll fraud. It carried out a coup the very day the new parliament was due to sit, and jailed the NLD's leader, Aung San Suu Kyi, after spending years under house arrest, then other restrictions in her movement. Suu Kyi was once again locked up. The military's power grab triggered mass protests on a near daily basis across Myanmar. Then came the crackdown, and it was brutal. Unarmed protesters were shot, many killed. After losing hope for change by peaceful means, many in Myanmar decided to take up arms against the military. The Parallel National Unity Government, or NUG, has called it a people's uprising. More than 2 years after the coup, much of the country remains engulfed by violence. Reports indicate near daily confrontations between resistance forces and soldiers, including air attacks, bombings, and homes being torched. According to a local monitoring group, more than 3,100 people have been killed, and some 20,000 have been arrested. More than 60,000 homes have been burned across the country since the coup, according to the monitoring group Data for Myanmar. The military's indiscriminate use of air raids, artillery shelling, and fighting with groups opposed to its rule has displaced more than 1 million people. Upwards of 17.6 million are in need of humanitarian assistance. But nowhere has the violence been as intense as in the Sagaing region of central Myanmar. Our digital investigations team, Sanad, along with journalists from Al Jazeera English Online, have been analyzing data, monitoring satellite imagery, and verify witness testimony to understand what's really happening. The Sagaing Division has sustained the worst of the damage. According to data from Myanmar, more than 4,700 homes were set ablaze by the end of February 2023. Our digital investigations team looked at such accusations in 4 villages in Sagaing. And a quick note, Al Jazeera's online journalists corroborated several eyewitness testimonies, but as the situation in Myanmar is still dangerous, faces have been blurred and some names have been changed to protect their identity. We begin in Khon, a farming village in the crosshairs of the violence. On the evening of February 28th, residents say soldiers came and torched their homes. The SAC is the State Administrative Council, created by the military following the coup. In the aftermath of the coup,
Myanmar's military has been accused of corruption and all that. This is what's happening over there. And I'm proud to say that I still kind of live in a free West. I'm allowed to say what I want to say without repercussions happening. But that is going to happen, Later in the future, when you're talking about this stuff, you'll be banned. You'll be gone with an instant. We've been banned before, showing Russian news. Not allowed. It is your tube, though. You know, it's your platform and your space on YouTube. But when you talk about real issues, they're watching. They are watching. And we know who the real enemy is. And we know that it's a parasitic institution that is draining the population of the world, basically. As I've said before, it's the military-industrial complex. So we're going to show you Eisenhower, who warned us of the military-industrial complex. Here we have Eisenhower.
I come to you with a message of leave-taking and farewell.
This speech did not get very much attention. When a new president is coming to power, as John Kennedy was, the spotlight was not on Dwight Eisenhower.
We have been compelled to create a permanent armaments industry of vast proportions.
There was a feeling at the time that this must have been written by some speechwriter who just sneaked into the speech.
In the councils of government, we must...
This is the wrong video. Sorry for that. We also have this one here. This is the one I wanted to show. We don't want to see a guy, you know. We want to see the president, right? So here we have Dwight D. Eisenhower warning of the military-industrial complex. Wait, go back there.
A vital element in keeping the peace is our military establishment. Our arms must be mighty, ready for instant action, so that no potential aggressor may be tempted to risk his own destruction. Our military organization today bears little relation to that known of any of my predecessors in peacetime, or indeed by the fighting men of World War II or Korea. Until the latest of our world conflicts, the United States had no armaments industry. American makers of plowshares could, with time and as required, make swords as well. But we can no longer risk emergency improvisation of national defense. We have been compelled to create a permanent armaments industry of vast proportions. Added to this, 3.5 million men and women are directly engaged in the defense establishment. We annually spend on military security alone more than the net income of all United States corporations. Now, this conjunction of an immense military establishment and a large arms industry is new in the American experience. The total influence, economic, political, even spiritual, is felt in every city, every state house, every office of the federal government. We recognize the imperative need for this development, yet we must not fail to comprehend its grave implications. Our toil, resources, and livelihood are all involved. So is the very structure of our society. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together.
We are informed. We are knowledgeable. We know what's happening, right? There's also someone who wrote a book, War is a Racket. Smedley Butler, right? Smedley Butler warning. Now, we just heard the president speak of, we put an institution in place, right, that wields a lot of power. And here we have a former general who has been in South America and stuff. Read the book, War is a Racket, warning us of a hostile takeover in the U.S.
I appeared before the Congressional Committee, the highest representation of the American people, under subpoena to tell what I knew of activities which I believe might lead to an attempt to set up a fascist dictatorship. The plan as outlined to me was to form an organization of veterans, to use as a bluff, or as a club at least, to intimidate the government and break down our democratic institutions. The upshot of the whole thing was that I was supposed to lead an organization of 500,000 men, which would be able to take over the functions of government. I talked with an investigator for this committee who came to me with a subpoena on Sunday, November 18th. He told me they had unearthed evidence linking my name with several such veteran organizations. As it then seemed to me to be getting serious, I felt it was my duty to tell all I knew of such activities to this committee. My main interest in all this is to preserve our democratic institutions. I want to retain the right to vote, the right to speak freely, and the right to write. If we maintain these basic principles, our democracy is safe. No dictatorship can exist with suffrage, freedom of speech, and press.
There we go. Smedley Butler. It's history telling us, warning us about the hostile takeover of countries, right? We had the World Economic Forum, and Justin Trudeau and many members of his cabinet and other members of the Dutch cabinet and other cabinets are part of the World Economic Forum and go to Bilderberg meetings and even the G7 and stuff like that. So this is what we're up against. Anyway, we're going to end the discussion. We got a lot on table. So we're going to show you a very nice Canadian woman named Natasha Maeve, who has her second collection. Keep your spirit up.
Slip the truth in these songs. If I didn't, I wouldn't feel like I'm righting my wrongs. I gotta switch it up. I'm sick of the sadness, sick of the anger. I rap it out to an old school beat that hits so hard it's a headbanger. I'm breaking free. I was trapped in the everyday chamber. I escape now. Now you can dance for the remainder of this tape now. I'm lightening the mood because we gotta keep in shape. Keep the balance while we stay awake. Make no mistake, don't pretend that it's all good, but don't think that it's all bad. There's a lot of love, a lot of light, a lot of memories to be made and good times to be had. I wanna bring back that boom bap, dance your ass off all night. Real dancing while you're free, not twerk and treat you like a rag doll. You're acting brain dead, I'm done with Sergio, that's what Jane said. I watched a flake fall, and I know it's time to live our lives like it's our last day. Humans are treating Mother Earth like she's an ashtray. They won't make it home on the last train. Where we going? I don't know. I don't have the answer, I just know that this matrix is a fucking lie. So I'm getting out, and I'm living life. The trees, the breeze, the rocks, the plants, the medicine, the dirt, the water. I am Mother Earth's daughter, too smart to be a victim of the slaughter. And this beat, could it get any hotter? You know I love the fire, because I get to watch it all burn down. This phony ass empire. I love the fire, cause we get to watch it all burn down. This phony ass empire, so love the fire. Keep your mind sharp, keep your body strong, keep your lips smiling, keep your eyes brightened, keep your spirit up, 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 keep your spirit up, keep your spirit up, 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 keep your mind sharp, keep your body strong, keep your lips smiling, keep your eyes brightened, keep your spirit up, 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 keep your spirit up, keep your spirit up, 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 keep your heart loving, keep it light. Bump to this heavy beat and let the pain and the energy that you don't need escape and be free. It's alright. You can use this music as your therapy. Every time the snare hits, it's clearing your body and your mind from the trash you don't need. It's magic, it's alchemy. Just put a little trust in me. I got you. Most of my life, no one had me. Now I can see exactly what we all need. So let it go, bob your head, dance it out. Feel these words in every cell of your body. Feel these words, feel these words, feel these words. Goodbye pain, goodbye to the thoughts that don't serve my brain. Goodbye to the doubt, I don't doubt myself. Those days are long gone, I live for the earth. Life goes on, goodbye lies. Goodbye to the shitty parts of yesterday. They do nothing for us, it's a new day. Hello, good times, hello to the laughs. The strength, the self-love, the smell of the flowers, the sunshine, the warmth of a fire on a cold day. Fuck the future, fuck the old days. Hello to now, right now, right now. It's all about now. So stay in the moment and keep your mind sharp. Keep your body strong, keep your lips smiling, keep your eyes brightened, keep your spirit up, up, up. Keep your spirit up, keep your spirit up, up, up. Keep your mind sharp, keep your body strong, keep your lips smiling, keep your eyes brightened, keep your spirit up, up, up. Keep your spirit up, keep your spirit up, up, up. Keep your heart loving, keep it light.
Beautiful song, and she's right. It's spiritual warfare, right? Spiritual warfare. And I live on this planet that we call Earth, even though some people believe it's flat. But, you know, I look at all these countries and I think, why? Why do we have borders? You know, why is there so much hate towards other countries? Hate towards Russia, hate towards China, hate towards North Korea. I mean, Kim Jong-un didn't do anything to me, you know. But that is the power structure that I look at when I look at North Korea. And that is a very repressive system that they live in. And I want freedom for them. I want unification. I want one Korea, you know. So you have basically a referee between China and Japan. You know, that's what I want. Down with Kim Jong-un, basically. Go away. You know, you're crazy. But all these people in power are crazy. They think they have power over us. They don't. Not over me. Not over me. Everett has a question about barbecue. There is something about that that we could also show if you have paid attention. You had seen it already. There you go. Barbecuen. Moet je dat nog wel doen deze zomer? Nee, zegt Milieuvereniging Land van Kuik. So there's this organization in Land van Kuik, which is a small, town. And that organization says, nope, you're not allowed to barbecue. That is bad for the environment. Yeah, right. So a cloud of depleted uranium is not bad for the environment, yet barbecue is bad for the environment. Oh my God. These people are crazy, man. Do not let people live your life. Do not let them dictate your life, right? These people work for us, not we for them, right? We make the rules here. We are the majority, and we are awake. We know what's going on. So I'll see you guys next time. Thank you all for watching and sharing. Sharing is caring, they say. Goodbye, and we'll see each other tomorrow.